go ahead and call the meeting to order. Need a roll call.
302. Mr. DeRosa,
I'm here in this place, Keisha Chambers.
Mr. Dever,
Mr. Sotak, present.
Ms. English,
Mr. Mack in place, but momentarily, I think she'll be here.
okay. Mayor Kumar,
I'm here.
Chair Teeuwen,
Here.
Mayor Weiss,
Here.
Ms. Melius.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Good job. Next on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes for the January 27th meeting. Did everybody have an opportunity to review, and are there any comments? Seeing none, I'll need a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
And I'll need a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays? All right, those are approved. Next item on the agenda is the review and approval of fiscal year 28, round 40, the administrative materials.
Sure.
Sure.
These should look very familiar because they don't change. Unfortunately, the amount of funding doesn't change either. But so as we will be wrapping up fiscal year 27, which is round 39, we will be going in, I'm sorry, round 40, we'll be going into round 41. And so the first item you have is the work plan. That is the work plan for myself and our team to do the work for the next round. And we're using the format that county planning uses for all of our projects. That's why it looks the way it looks. It should look fairly familiar. And then on page 10 of your handout is the budget, the administrative budget. This shows how we get to the $65,000 that OPWC provides us for the work that we do to manage this program. And then the actual language of the contract typically isn't available until June, but this is the draft language that Nick Rose has sent me, and Nick is on the call. That is the template that the OPWC uses for the contract. So this is getting ready for the next round. Sure.
This is to Nick. Do you anticipate any changes coming on board with the contract, with the agreement?
I do not.
Thank you.
I need a motion to approve. I even could draft some language for you if you'd like. A motion to approve the administrative documents for the OPWC fiscal year 28, round 41, including the work plan, budget, draft contract, and to authorize Chair Teeuwen to enter into such agreements needed to coordinate the program.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Is that Nicole?
Yeah, the only thing is Bonnie's last name's spelled wrong, but I'm sure they'll fix that on the.
Oh, yeah, you're right, it is. Okay. So Nicole was the second. Okay. You just,
So all those in favor, send me a roll call.
Aye.
Any nays?
okay.
Next item on the agenda is HAC update.
We're going to turn that over to Nick. Nick, we're having a little trouble hearing you, so speak loudly, please.
Not a problem. How's that? All right. Yeah, so just a couple of updates from OPWC. Abby DeHart, formerly our CFO, has been appointed the new OPWC director. Additionally, Dan De Niro has joined OPWC as our new CFO. He comes to us from ODOT, bringing valuable experience in state infrastructure funding and financial management. Also, Elaine and I have been tackling some district maintenance. We've been reviewing older district projects that have exceeded their own project schedules and OPWC schedule requirements, and may be ready for closeout. Getting these projects closed out should return a significant amount of funds for future projects. Elaine and I have created a shared spreadsheet to monitor and track that. Let me know if you guys have any questions.
Are there any questions?
May I just wanted him to give the update because I think many of you know that Linda Bailiff retired last year. So we do have that new administrator. And then, as Nick said, he and I are meeting a minimum of monthly to accelerate the closeout of projects, which increases our balances so that we can be allocating that to contingency funds. No action.
Item 5 is the recommendations and update approvals for the bylaws. And I think I'm going to kick that over to Mayor Weiss.
So Mayor Weiss and Jamie DeRosa have been working with me to update the bylaws, which have to be updated every 5 years. This is the year for doing so. And so I'll just kind of quickly, I'm not going to go through all of the details, but I'm going to quickly highlight a couple of the sections. So starting on page 15 of your packet, it's kind of the detailed list of areas that we are recommending that we change. There's a couple of things that I kind of want to highlight. I mean, like the first one, we think that 4 weeks is too short to be advertising for the private sector, so we increased that to 6 weeks. The word office is used 3 different ways that we found very confusing. So in our original bylaws, your membership was referred to an office, yet there are different requires for the mayors who hold a public office, and then we have our 2 officers. So to simplify it, we're basically removing the word office being used generically. We're referring to your positions on this committee as membership. Okay, and then we're referring to our officers as officers. And then in the section, or the section that says if an elected official leaves his or her elected office, then they're no longer members of this committee. So we tried to unconfuse that. We added some more detail to alternates. If an alternate should vacate his or her position, how would that be refilled? Because it wasn't clear on that. The committee meetings, the current bylaws state that the committee meetings happen in July or immediately after OPWC releases their next program. That is not an OPWC requirement, and it can get confusing. So actually what we're recommending is that this meeting be the annual meeting and that we do as much as the administrative work as possible, like the approval of the administrative agreements that you just approved, that we do that in the springtime so that it's all done. And part of the concern was when your terms expire, which most of you, your terms will expire next year, your terms will expire on June 30th. And if we don't have an administrative meeting to recognize the new appointments until September, we technically don't have members and we don't have officers for the summer. So I'm recommending, or the team is recommending, that we move the annual meeting, excuse me, to the springtime so that all of this administrative work is done before one fiscal year ends and the next one begins. Okay? There were technicalities. It says we have to get the meeting minutes to the director. Nick is fine with us getting them to OPWC via him. The bylaws also state that every time we take an action, we put it into resolution format. We don't do that. So we're just recommending that actions are noted in our minutes. Okay? We're updating, so rather than saying if the chair were to call a special meeting, that I would contact everyone by telephone, we changed that to whatever the technology is of the day, as long as I get a response back from everyone. We already talked about the annual meeting and minutes, officers. We talked about moving that stuff to the springtime. Subcommittees. We do form these intermittent task forces, which are actually not subcommittees, so they don't need to go through any special approvals. And then we didn't change anything in the amendments. We changed one word under staff. It says that the liaison assists the applicants with their plans. I don't assist anyone with their project plans. I assist them with their applications. Mayor Weiss, do you have anything else from your memory?
No. I should, one of many times, I'm sure, just sing Elaine's praises. She did an amazing job teeing all this up for us to talk through very efficiently, and a lot of it is just old stuff that doesn't really make sense anymore. And so Deborah and I felt very comfortable with the proposed changes.
So there is one issue that just popped up today, though, that I do want to throw out. Jamie DeRosa contacted me on Friday and said, something's come up at the city. I cannot be here. Keisha will be here. In your appointment letters, Keisha is the alternate for Bonnie, and Rick Swiatkowski is the alternate for Jamie. So technically, you're not Jamie's alternate. So a question that I have for you all is, do you want to consider the idea that because the alternates are appointed from each member grouping, that alternates could be assigned to both of the members?
We've had that come up too. And,
Talk it,
I mean, we've had that come up too, and we've stuck with the 1 for 1, but I would think it could be flexible. I think the question is more on the mayor's side, if you guys feel that your alternates are, you know, depending on how you pick alternates, like, or is your alternate representing, you know, you, and Mayor Weiss's is them, you know, do you separate it by area? I don't know how the mayors and managers pick theirs, but from the county, to us, it wouldn't really matter because we're picking them out of the same, I assume the city, I don't want to assume, but would think that you would probably feel the same, but the mayors might have a different thought, I don't know.
I just, and not that this addresses directly the question, I guess I always thought having a single alternate that took more responsibility for making sure they were up to speed on what was happening, and could really fill in adequately on topics that were pending, as opposed to just naming anyone. But I also understand the logistics of it. I think this may have just been a technical error, not necessarily what's wrong with, you know, that the system needed to be changed, but that's just me.
everyone, we are live streaming. If I could remind you all, we are live streaming, so please talk into your microphones.
Yeah, I'm probably open to having that discussion as well. The only thing I was trying to think here is that when you're voted in by the mayors and managers, the second person that finishes second is the alternate. So we'd only have to, at least on the mayor's viewpoint, we'd have to make sure that because terms change and stuff, you can't just say these are the two alternates, because they're gonna have a term with that regular voting member. So that's the only thing I think could get sort of sticky. I mean, I think it's a practical matter. If one of us can't make it and we contact an alternate, we're in good shape, but that would be the only thing we would want to watch and make sure it can't be just a pool, because it would, or we'd have to be careful because the terms will end differently.
Yeah.
Caitlin, do you have any comments? Kind of.
You don't have an alternate.
I mean, I guess, is it possible to have like county, city have one approach and the mayors have the other? Or is that too much?
We could go back and work that out. I do have some proposed simple language, because one of the other things that we did put in is a procedure for filling the role of an alternate should the alternate leave. So in the case that the alternates for the mayors are mayors, okay? We have two. Mayor Klein has attended many meetings, and Mayor Sagelka has attended many meetings. So I do think we have to be sensitive to keeping those people up to speed so that when they are called upon, they're in good shape. But we did write in some clearer wording on how do you replace an alternate when an alternate steps down for whatever reason. So that language is already there.
I would say, though, I could see in the future, I mean, right now, the way the county's working, right, is two public works folks. Our alternates are public works folks. But I could see there could be a time that the county wants to pick someone outside of public works, and then I think the alternates would need to be probably tied to their actual members, because it could be different departments. So, I mean, for now, it's working for us, and we could intermix, but I do see that we could come back in the future if things changed, which I would hate to redo then again. So, I don't know.
Yeah, this is an exception, I think, because both Rick and Jamie had some issues that they had to address today. I'm glad Keisha could make it, and she's a fine alternate. I would hate to change something just because of a fluke that happened to have it. I think in most cases, we always have our alternates can sit in for one or the other. So unless anybody feels very strongly, I'd like to keep it as is. Okay,
Yeah, I would agree.
okay.
In this case, sorry, in this case, just, I don't think procedurally we're gonna have any split votes today, but can she technically vote today then? Okay, but she can take back information. Okay.
So then, could we talk about this section, though, related to this section 3, the alternates? I just want to be sure we've captured, I know it's like a really weird nuance, but the way it's now reading that they vacate their membership, it's like leaving it up to them. I mean, if for some reason Tom were to leave employment at the county and he chooses not to vacate his membership and he still has a term that's unexpired, how does that work? I just want to be sure that if they no longer are representing the place that they were appointed from, that it automatically cancels. It's not leaving it up to the person to vacate their membership. That had me just a little bit concerned about, I don't know if it really does give them the power or not, but where it used to be that they're no longer employed or they're no longer a mayor or an elected official, it goes away automatically. Now we're excited giving it to them to vacate their membership, which has caused some problems in other organizations.
Right, that's a good point, and we didn't intend it to be that the person is making the decision. So I understand your,
I don't know how to read
yeah, we're trying to shorten things up, and that we might need a sentence that says, if an alternate changes position and is no longer representing their organization, that triggers a vacating of, and then the rest of it could read.
I think that's what was intended.
Intended, I would
Yeah.
guess, yeah. maybe just look at the language if, I don't know, how would it clean that up, but.
Are we- Fine.
Can I pull off the wording in 30 seconds is what you're saying? Could we do this? Could we agree upon the intention of it, and then Mayor Weiss and Jamie and I go back and come up with the actual sentence? Can you empower us to do that, or do you want to see the actual sentence?
The intention to date, is the intention today the vote on these changes, these bylaws? Okay. Then I believe I would feel more comfortable if we change the wording now and include that as part of what we're approving today.
Anyone have any suggestions?
And I think it goes in both of those, section C, I mean, the committee member and the alternate. It's that vacating their membership, that just, those words are what threw me.
Nation, it can terminate.
Mhm. Yeah, any
God-
change,
God
right,
forbid.
right. And that covers a mayor or a
Covers
public
everybody
employee, yeah.
The same way.
Which item
So it
would you see that in?
would be in this paragraph that says if
No longer serving in that position.
See paragraph 2 and 3. And the,
Is to serve in that position.
the only person that would change for is the, sorry, Caitlin, what's your position called? The independent, or
Public,
the
yeah.
public, the
Public
public
member.
person, because technically that's her personally, it's not necessarily her position.
Right.
So that would be different for the public.
And, but it still applies if I would join the public, like a different organization like Debbie did before, right? So,
But I hate to say, like, if you're not employed by the same, like, we didn't pick you because you were
Right.
employed by X company,
Right.
right? We picked you as your resume.
Right.
So if you went to Y company that doesn't have a conflict, she could continue. It
Continue,
doesn't
yeah.
mean she had to leave. So that would be the, I just want to be sure we don't do something and
that
cause
has a-
trouble that way
has-
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can we take out the word position and just say if a committee member is no longer able to serve, the member's alternate should continue to serve for the full term? And there's specifications elsewhere that says what the eligibility is, rather than saying position.
I'm working on, hold on.
And we're, just to be clear, we're just specifically talking about alternate.
No, I think we're talking about both.
Yeah, I just think that vacates the membership is a weird term, don't you think?
So if it read, if a committee member no longer serves in their represented position.
Sides. That'd be the only way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of catch you, but.
So we need something as if a committee, if we write it for the committee member, then I think we have it for the alternate. So let's write it for that. So if a committee member
Which section, Elaine, are you?
we're at the top of page 3 of the actual bylaws.
Yeah.
And that would be section 3C.
Got it, I got it.
And we could write it as if a committee member is no longer affiliated with the member group. We're calling these the member groups from which they were appointed. If you, you need to call on the public to make a comment.
We have one of our esteemed alternates would like to make a comment, recommendation.
Sure. Okay. Judd Klein, Orange Village Mayor, alternate. I was going to suggest that if the language that might be worthwhile is if a committee member is no longer serving in the position or organization for or from which the member was selected, then their membership is vacated.
It's clear.
You get that? One more time, please.
One more time. If a committee member is no longer serving in the position or organization, I have it written down, I can give it to you. Why don't I just give it to you, Elaine? We'll save a lot of time.
And then we could use that same language for the alternate. If the alternate is no longer, okay, so is no longer serving in the position or organization, I'm going to say from which the member was appointed, then their membership is vacated. Thank you, Mayor.
I'll be here for something.
You can sit at the big kids' table now.
Oh, I think you still need, you still need the rest of that sentence though, right?
Correct.
That the appointing authority may reappoint. Yeah, okay, just want to
Right, yeah.
make sure.
The rest of the sentence is still valid.
Yeah.
Very good. That was really good. Good catch, Nicole.
Okay, so we have the recommended changes as summarized by Elaine and in the documents that were previously sent to us in the agenda. And then we, I believe we need a motion to amend.
Would you like some wording for that motion? This makes it easier for them.
Okay.
Do you want this? Thank you. I was going to say a motion to revise the bylaws as proposed and discussed with rewording regarding,
So I think we need an amendment to add the revisions that we just made.
right, you want to do two, or do we want to do a motion to approve it with the changes?
Motion with the, as
Okay.
amended.
Got it.
Yeah. As amended. So we need a motion to revise the bylaws as proposed and as amended in today's discussion.
Somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
And a second?
So we have Weiss, Nicole.
Seconded. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays?
Wonderful. Good. Thank you all.
I also would like to thank Elaine and the staff and Jamie and the mayor for the work that went into tweaking the bylaws for that, so.
Welcome, thank you.
Are we doing this?
You are.
Okay.
So the next agenda item, thank you, is the appointment or reappointment of the Small Government Subcommittee. And all three current members of the Small Government Subcommittee have accepted your invitation to serve again. We don't need to vote on this. The chair can make this appointment. Sometimes what we do is take a vote to affirm the chair's appointment.
And the current members are,
Mayor Paul Kumar, who is a member and the current chair, Ms. Nicole English, and Mayor David Weiss.
does anybody have any objections to them continuing to be the members of the Small Government Subcommittee? No objections. I'll allow them to continue their duties.
you want to do a vote to affirm your, you don't have to. Okay.
No, that's fine. Three of them's gonna vote for themselves. It's always a little awkward. Policy manual preliminary update discussions. This is just discussions, correct?
Actually, I'm hoping for a vote of two things. So again, Mayor Weiss and Jamie DeRosa have been helping with taking a look at the policy manual. And there's really two things I want to discuss with you today because the staff has also been involved. We spent a bunch of time trying to understand one of the paragraphs and trying to figure out what it means. But so in general, we are operating off of, Mayor Weiss and Jamie DeRosa have agreed with these kind of overall concepts and would like to get an affirmation of those, so I can go with them through first. And then the second is, there's one paragraph in here describing an alternative scoring method for a very unique situation that we can't even figure out how to do it. And there's a unanimous recommendation to remove that. So for me to do the first part, as we're going through all of these, so these are I'm on page 18 of 20, the draft recommendations on the following principles. And one is that we want our topics to be in the right document. So we want the bylaws stuff to be in the bylaws document, the policy manual stuff in the policy document, and everything else for the applicants in the applicant documents. There has been a lot of overlap between these. And the more I can simplify these, the more I can get these into the right bucket, then if and when we ever change one of those, we only have to change it in one location and not get caught up in a conflict because, oops, it was in another document and we didn't change it there. Another point, OPWC does not require a policy manual. Nick has also shared with me that OPWC does not like it when a district takes OPWC's policies and copies and pastes them and puts them into a district manual. They're just going to keep those separate. The only topics that should be in our policy manual would be ones that are not governed by OPWC and is unique to District 1. The topics kind of bounced all over the place, and as I've gone through them, they really fall into kind of the following outline. I mean, clearly there needs to be an introduction, a reference to OPWC's policies and resources, but the three areas that we cover are allocation of funds, change requests or requests for changes, which are scope changes and or asking for more money. And then there are a few that are unique and different. So I'd kind of like, I don't know that we have to have a vote, but I'm kind of looking for affirmation from this group that do you agree with that? Because what we would be doing then is taking things out of the policy manual that don't need to be in there, just getting them out. Clarifying the language for these things, allocations of funds, change requests, and then moving things, if they're not already in the applicant manual, putting them into the applicant manual if that's where they belong. Any discussion on that?
If people aren't required to have a policy manual,
Why not?
what's in it that we feel we need if we don't want to just copy the state's policies either?
Right. So the way in which we allocate balances, the how we will deal with requested changes. So if a project moving along and they need to change their scope, it has to come to the DOPWIC first. And if you all approve it, then I send it to Nick and then he can move on it. So what we will accept changes for, what we won't accept changes for, and what our process is for doing that is in there.
Seems like we do need it. Right.
I would agree. The other one is, if we are converting a septic system to a sanitary system or a well to a drinking water system, the DOPWIC has determined that that is not a new system, but an updated system. That makes a difference for all of our small governments in how the small government projects are scored. You get fewer points if it's considered new. So whoever came up with that, whenever it was very wise because it gives us more points on our small government. So there are a few items that do make sense. It's a good question I was asking. If it's not required, why do we have it? But
Questions about the principles of that?
No, I would just add that we spent a fair amount of time on this. The documents, with all due respect to whoever drafted them, were a little challenging to find your way through. And so I think the buckets, if you will, that Elaine's created with the bylaws, the policy manual, and the applicant manual is a logical place for everything we have fit into one of those three categories, just weren't always in the right spot. So that was in large part. With respect to the policy manual, there was nothing really, we didn't add anything. We just kept the things that are already in our policy manual. It just, we cleaned it up and got it all in one spot. But we didn't recommend any substantive changes to the policies that started there and remain there.
No other comments? We'll let you continue to do the work,
okay,
the great work that you're doing.
okay. So we're affirming those organizing principles. So then I would like a vote on this one paragraph. So if you read on page 18 at the bottom, there is a section that has to do with doing an alternative scoring for LTIP eligible projects, which would be road, bridge, and culvert projects. And the way that it's currently written, it's very vague as to what would trigger this and why. And all that the staff and I could think of is if we had a situation, well, let me back up a little bit. LTIP funds come from the gasoline tax, and they can only be used for road, bridge, and culvert. They also cannot be paired with the SCIP, the state capital funds. So applicants are not applying for LTIP funds or for SCIP funds. They're just applying for money. And if they put in an application for a loan, that cannot be funded with LTIP funds. If they put in an application for a combination of a grant and a loan, LTIP funds cannot be used because all loan money originates in the SCIP program, okay? So we think that this paragraph in the policy manual came out of a thought that there could be a possible year in which there were not enough requests for grant money for road, bridge, and culvert projects relative to the amount of money that we had. And therefore, we would have some big amount, not specified how big it had to be, that we couldn't give away. So what this is, I was waiting to see who would react first. It's a very, very, very unlikely scenario. But it imagines that, and then it says, okay, now the other thing is, an applicant applying for a loan gets extra point value because they're asking for a loan. So what it suggests is that these road, bridge, culvert projects, but we're not sure if it's all of them or just the ones who have asked for some form of a loan, get rescored as if they were not asking for a loan, and then whoever scores the highest gets told, you win, instead of a loan, we're going to give you all the money in a grant. It would, except figuring out how to get there and how much money left over from the standard process would warrant triggering this. And then the other things that go on is what Nick and I described is we have the projects below the line, which are the contingency projects. And as we close out projects and money comes back in, Nick then goes down the list and allocates those funds. And then anything that's left over when we start the next round gets rolled into the next round. So the staff unanimously, after we actually tried to run a simulation, figuring out how to do this and couldn't quite figure it out, the staff unanimously recommends that this clause be removed from the policy manual. And then I think Mayor Weiss and Jamie spent 35 to 45 minutes on it on Friday and came out the other end agreeing that the recommendation is to remove this clause from the policy manual.
This is purely a District 1 policy. It's not leftover from a statewide policy or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't see we've ever had this scenario.
Questions, comments? Mayor?
You hate having language that nobody can understand. So it seemed to make good sense to remove it.
Okay, and you'd like a vote on this to
Mhm.
remove that? Would you like to
I have
make a
some.
recommended
Is
motion?
a recommended motion. The motion to remove the paragraph in the alternative selection processes section of the current policy manual titled LTIP eligible projects.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so, and then we have some application manual preliminary update.
Right. We had a wonderful conversation last time you all got together. And so we need to clarify language in our applicant manual. The biggest part of the conversation was around, so we don't really need a vote on this today because I want to work through the details, but I want to get your thoughts on it. So we had a conversation on the users and how to determine the average daily traffic. And we had these methods listed here in the middle of the page. And the current staff recommendation is to change that third bullet point to a manual 24-hour count. So there's differences of opinion on that. But the other question is because of the discussion that we had is, would there be a hierarchy? So, part of it is, does an applicant do an alternative count? Certainly if there is no count available in TIMS, but do we consider it equal if there is a count in TIMS, but they're doing an alternative anyway? Or do we want the applicant to say give us a reason that says, the reason we're doing an alternative count is because we think the count in TIMS is not accurate for the following reasons. So I don't have exact wording for this, but would love to get your input on that so I can take it back to the staff and to our team with Mayor Weiss and Jamie so that we can propose some language.
So I know I missed the last meeting, unfortunately, but weirdly, I used to be a traffic engineer when I practiced engineering a little bit more than I do today. But I just think we're getting so caught up on the nuances of a traffic count. There's lots of ways you can do an accurate traffic count. It doesn't always need to be 24 hours. If I am counting an intersection, I will never count for 24 hours. You just don't do it that way. It costs money that you don't have. So I hate to put a burden on people for no reason. So there are ways to acceptably take a 6-hour count and interpolate that to 24 hours. That's accepted practice in traffic engineering all over the place. So I don't know why we got so hung up on that. I will tell you, Tim's is not the end-all be-all. I often find Tim's is wrong. There, you'll go in and see lots of roads say 10,700, exactly that number all over the place in the state, and that cannot possibly be the case. So I think those are wrong too. So to put a hierarchy on these, I think is wrong also, because I'm not so sure that ODOT is more accurate always than someone taking a count. I also think the county used to do counts back in the day. We don't really do them anymore. We don't have a published list of counts that are certainly not in the last 3 years. I mean, very few counts do we have that are more accurate. NOACA does counts too, that they supplement on some things. So, I mean, there's a million ways to get a traffic count. I don't know why we need to be so worked up over how someone supplied their traffic count. I mean, if someone gives you a count that says there's 20,000 vehicles and you go out there and spend an hour and don't see but 5 cars, maybe there's an issue here, but I just don't know how, you know, we're gonna have to trust engineers that are stamping documents. They stamp them on every other category. Why are we being so critical on the traffic count? So-
And at the end of the day, like everything else in
Mayor,
an
can you speak into the microphone?
application, isn't this, you know, all the data that's submitted by an applicant at the discretion of our staff to interpret and look at and say,
True.
you know, we're gonna make a decision based on the factors in this application, whatever method they may have used. And so it's still at the discretion of the staff to come back and defend the reasoning
Yep.
by it. We don't wanna take that discretionary ability away from them for the work that they've done.
Right.
Is I think what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. I just think the more you define to a T, the more issues people are gonna have with it. It's a little bit better to say, you'll do a traffic count that meets, I mean, again, the people submitting the applications are, you know, engineers are signing estimates, engineers are signing, you know, all the other documents you have. I mean, we should be trusting, you know, we're not checking every
understand.
single thing they tell us. So, I don't know, that's my opinion, but I'm one person.
Tim's may or may not work for you, and it certainly should be fine to submit that traffic count information. And I think I said this before, the 6-hour counts are acceptable per the manual, so I don't know why we wouldn't allow them as well. And, you know, there's some mathematical derivation there, how it comes up, but it's close enough.
Right.
I think one of the things the staff is interested in is if most of the applicants are using, for example, the TIM system, and whether it's for the pavement condition rating or for the users, and then a few unique applicants choose, even if that data is available, and choose not to. Part of the question is help us understand why you think that TIM's data that everyone else is using is not good, and that maybe putting in here, asking for an explanation just to help support that.
But I don't know why Tim's is the ultimate.
And-
I mean, I just don't know.
Depends on the location. Tim's could be great for you, or bad, depending on
For
where
an
your location
interstate,
is, right?
like I said, there's errors in Tim's, I'm telling you, I
Yeah,
could find you
I
a
know.
bunch of them. So I don't know why we're thinking that's the.
Olmsted
end.
Township,
Right.
Stearns and Bagley. Closest Tim station was 3 miles away or 2.5 miles away.
Mhm.
That's not
Accurate, you
reliable.
know.
And that's why we went and did a traffic study, because that's,
Again, discretion of the staff.
right?
I guess, too, you know, the pavement condition, it's stated in the manual that it's at the discretion of the staff, and I know an adjustment was made based on the PCR and when you guys went out there. I guess if we put a footnote like that for ADT, I wonder how you are judging which one is correct too. So I just, if it's kind of staff discretion, are we redoing counts? Yeah, so like how is that, like, oh, well, I didn't see as many cars, but how are we quantifying that? I don't, that's a hard one.
That's why I just feel like we have to trust the applicants in some fashion. I mean, I know you need they should have data to, you know, I don't want to just say, I think it's 10,000 cars because I looked at it. But again, you know, there's a lot to traffic counts. I mean, when you do them, what time of year you're doing them, you know, if something was happening at the time, you know, people can manipulate them how they want. But the ranges are pretty large that, I mean, it would take a lot of manipulating to really flip you into some of those different categories. It's, you know, 5,000 or whatever the break is. So I just would rather us leave it a bit open and say to acceptable practices of, you know, traffic counts. And the staff should know what's acceptable and I don't know. That I'd rather leave it looser because I don't believe ODOT's TIMS system is always accurate. And so we shouldn't have to give a reason why we didn't use TIMS if we just know that TIMS doesn't appear accurate.
Okay.
And, oh, you did say that the county no longer does traffic counts?
We do not, well, if someone asks us to do a traffic count, we might do it, but we do not have a program anymore that we go out and do tons and tons of roads on it. You know, we used to have summer interns that did that. We haven't done that in ages, unfortunately.
Right.
Right.
Questions, the second bullet point there.
Yeah, so they certainly would not be within the last 3 years if that's what you're trying to also provide, you know, something of last 3 years of documentation, like.
We might have a location if we were doing a project there or something for some
Correct.
reason, but.
Yeah, that's
Right, so-
typically what we would
So
have.
this second bullet point is outdated.
Correct.
Mhm.
Now, will it, I mean, on county letterhead, we might have done a project, you know, if somebody said, oh, you did a bridge a couple years ago, did you
You did
guys
a
do a count? We typically would have thrown tubes down so that we could have checked a
Right.
count. So we might have a count,
So
but
we can leave it in.
as far as there used to be a county count book that streets were done on a
Yeah.
rotation. That does not exist anymore.
I think that's from before 2008.
Yeah,
So,
so.
So I guess a question is, if we get a submission that has 10,700, so what is,
what's the,
are we just allowing anyone to kind of say what's in our best interest and go for it? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, because to be honest, we've gone on Tim sometimes and it has that number, and I'm like, there's no way there's that many cars.
Right.
But you know what? That's what the Tim says. I mean, I guess put it in, right? If that's what they're going to accept. So I mean,
Okay.
people might use it to their advantage. I don't know how we can validate besides.
it is, I think the most important is to have the support of the discretion of the staff. And I think, as an example, one of the applications was for a series of kind of sleepy side streets in a community that was right next to the highway. And the Tims said that they had over 10,000, and we went out to check this out, and we literally parked the car, and we drove around those neighborhoods, and at rush hour, and we saw 4 moving cars.
I just worry, to Caitlin's point, though, again, what are you guys going to, you know, what if there was a road blocked up the way that you didn't know about? You know, I do worry that we give too much discretion, that then it's like, well, we went out and saw 4 cars, but it's like, oh yeah, but, you know, 480 was closed that day because there was an incident, or you just kind of open yourselves up for a lot of questioning if you're gonna now question everyone's counts too. I just feel we have to give some onus to these people submitting applications, that they are signing off, that they're giving us, you know, acceptable information that's based on facts.
And I think the staff is typically aware of situations as far as traffic and that. If something doesn't look right or something, like you said it yourself, if something doesn't look right, they'll look into it. They'll ask around in that and find out, because it's, you know, most of the time it's like, okay, that sounds like it's close.
I just don't want to put a burden on communities that are trying to submit these applications. I hear it from the cities, they're paying engineers to do them, to then say, now you gotta go do a count, you're spending a couple more $1,000 to get a new count, if that's really not necessary. You know, if you have something that's, you know, fairly good, acceptable, most recent, let them use it. That's kind of my opinion. I just hate to put more burden on filling out these applications.
And to be clear, the staff does not change any numbers that come in on the applications. We don't change them, but we do have to interpret them. And then the interpretations, pretty much really the only categories that are open to a rating interpretation are the infrastructure condition and the health and safety. So this is what I'm looking for, opinions.
So, Mayor,
This is, I'm wandering into waters that I probably shouldn't, but it seems to me that as long as it's clear that the staff has the ability to back check a number, if it doesn't look right, or it's the 10,700 that everyone acknowledges is not right, there's no harm in asking an applicant to, provide more or fix it or whatever, without going overboard by saying you have to do X, Y, and Z. But that's just, we had a pretty lively discussion here a couple of weeks ago, or a month or so ago. And to me, that's the kind of discussion we should have.
so I think what I'm hearing is to leave it as is and leave it up to the staff to verify some of the numbers and if necessary, ask for more information rather than putting specifics in the application manual. Is that a good interpretation of that?
I guess to clarify, so like in the case of the last one, the request for more information, would that be, can we have a longer count if you're not trusting
I
what
think,
the count came up with or that
And-
formula came up with?
and I think
or-
there's technology now, like
Yeah.
whether it's using Streetlight, the program, that, there's a lot of interesting ways that you can get more counts. Putting tubes down is a relatively inexpensive way. So if the staff doesn't think these are accurate counts, then they can ask the applicant to verify those numbers. And I think they can do it in a pretty easy fashion.
You raise a good point about some of the additional technology that's out there. I think the challenge that we have with the manual is, we say, it says the following supporting documentation, it's really interpreted as the following methods are acceptable for. And so maybe we even need to see if there are, some of the other technologies that are out there and actually
Yeah.
listing them or having something that says, or
That
the
is
latest
manual.
technology of the day.
Yeah, to Nicole's point, I don't think you want to be so prescriptive that if you just put a general, or other methods.
Other acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, a manual count is still putting out video technology, that we still would call a manual count. I mean, that means you went out and someone, it doesn't have to necessarily be with your hands, it could be a
wires.
camera, it could be a tube. We would refer to a manual count as anything like that. It's just, I mean, I know the question came up last time about how many hours they interpolated. I would have agreed with the applicant that I think the hours they had, you can calculate. I mean, again, on certain roads, there's no cars outside of peak hour, not many, and so it doesn't really contribute. But that's the decision that was made. I just don't think, if a traffic engineer submits that count and says that's the ADT based on here's how we did it, I mean, there is acceptable practice. 4 or 6 hours is, you can do it. But again, if
3
it
in the
gets you
morning
some
and 3 in the evening.
crazy, yeah, like if again, they took 6 hours from middle of the night, obviously that wouldn't help them, but, like that wouldn't make much sense. But, so you just have to have a little bit of ability to look at it, that it's rational, but I also just don't want to tie people's hands, because if they have that information and it's valuable, they should use it.
There may be a reason why you want to use one method over the other, and if it's reasonably close, why not give them the option to do that? Maybe you do want to go to tubes with a 24-hour count. Maybe for some reason you have a lot of traffic at off-peak hours that you know about, that wouldn't, but that's up to you. As the engineer, I think they should be given as long as they did it in a reasonable fashion, they should be given the discretion to come up with that count as they see fit. Just like figuring out how much flow is gonna go through a bridge or a culvert. I mean, there's different ways to calculate that, but.
Do you require the engineer to sign the count at all, or no?
Yes.
They sign the traffic count
Yes.
too? So it just seems easier. I mean, they are saying they're using their professional opinion that it's
Yeah,
accurate.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with it.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
there was a lot of great conversation around it, and the staff, the veteran staff, when we first saw that, said that method is not listed in our manual. So maybe that's the debate as to, does this bullet point meet that? So if we feel we need clarification
I mean,
to
technically, if
broaden.
he interpreted it as manual count of the current average daily traffic, meaning you counted literally every hour of the day, then that does need to be changed. If that was his interpretation, then I would say a manual count, you know, to be interpolated to an 80, you know, like if you want to put it something so that it does, because you could read it exactly as it's written, that you need to count 24 hours. That could be read that way.
Right.
I don't think it was ever intended that way, but
Yeah, I think that's what we want to clear up. And I agree with as the basket of acceptable methods grows, and we think those are fine, as defined by the traffic engineering community, we need to reflect that. But, which means we also need to write this in a way that can be inclusive of whatever methods come along, so we don't have to change it every time another method comes along.
Okay, so I think where we're at, you don't,
We don't need
we,
to vote on anything.
we don't
I
need to
just
vote
need-
anything. We have some thoughts and ideas. You'll come back to us if there's revisions that you want to make to the applicant manual, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
one last point, could we see what other people, I mean, I love to learn from others, but, I mean, other districts, how are they defining their counts? Because everybody has to have users. So maybe we could just pull that too.
I will check with Nick to see some other methodologies, that's what OPWC calls them, regarding PCRs as well as users. One of the reasons I am bringing this up is because we will start working rigorously on any changes to the applicant manual, because the new director, because she's new, she wants a big, long lead time. And if we change anything, OPWC has to approve our changes before we release them. We'll release them in July. She wants 45 days, so that means she needs all of June and half of May. And so that means I'll need to get the staff together, and anyone else who wants to help, to look at some of these changes so we could get them in for a May meeting.
The next item is infrastructure condition scoring.
Kind of similar, similar concept. The way we are set up is that the applicants defines their primary infrastructure as either a road, bridge, culvert project or some form of a water project. And then they pick the supplement worksheet that goes along with that. When we come to, at the same time, we also appreciate, and therefore we give additional points to a project that is going to fix multiple things at the same time. So we call that coordinated infrastructure. So you're going to rip up the road. If you're going to fix the drinking water, you're going to fix the sewer, and you're going to fix the road, we think that's great. And you get more points for that. However, when it comes to rating the infrastructure condition or rating the health and safety, we put on blinders and only look at what was selected as the primary infrastructure. So the question is, if someone is doing a project that's coordinating more than one infrastructure topic, should we look at the infrastructure conditions of each of the things they're going to fix? Should we look at the health and safety impacts of each of the things they're going to fix? Conceptually, I think there's one conversation, and then how do we physically do that? Because it's a picking of a category that then turns into points. Could be a little bit more difficult, but I am interested in your ideas on that.
I guess I would say that, yes, you should include the condition of the different infrastructures that make sense. Because there's many projects that they have multiple problems on it, not just, but I think if you go through the scoring criteria, you always use pavement condition because that has the highest ADT as opposed to like a water line and who it's supporting. So there's tricks to that, there's nuances to that, but I think it's important that we take into consideration all the conditions of the various infrastructure. As far as how you do it, I'll leave that up to you.
Is there any specific examples or where this came about, or?
Sure. The City of Independence application, and they did an appeal. They are Brecksville Road. The project is for replacing water lines, which it's old and they had a lot of lead connections. And they picked water as the project. But then they also have a rough surface. So they have, not so great PCR score, and they had a modest amount of accidents. So we only looked at because it was a water project, we only looked at their water situation. We got together with Cleveland Water, and the lead connections were surprisingly high, but it was a low priority for Cleveland Water on other reasons. So that's just an example where you're doing a road and you're doing a water line.
Yeah, I guess as far as the how, if there's a way to make a weighted average on the condition based on user, because you have a user for a water line, you have a user for the roadway, and there could be a condition, a weighted condition based on that. I'm just throwing that out there off the top of my head, but it would be a challenge, but I definitely think it's worth looking at the different types of infrastructure.
You use cost to weight some of it, because when we're determining what the primary type of project, I mean, we use cost to figure that out. Like, we had a sanitary and a roadway project. We took the greater cost and made that the driver of the project.
Actually, it gets more complicated. The amount of money that's being spent determines which type of project it is for OPWC, project type.
Okay.
We don't even look at that when we're doing what we're talking about now. It's when you come into the DOPWIC program and you pick the main reason we're doing the project. That's called primary infrastructure.
But we pick that, I'm telling you, the way we pick that is by cost. That's
Okay.
how we're doing, that's how we're picking it. Like if the sewer is driving the cost of the whole project, we then are picking sewer.
Okay.
If roadway is higher, we're picking road. I mean, maybe that's not what's required, but that's kind of what we're doing. So I was just gonna go to Bonnie's point, like maybe cost could be your weighing factor,
But I also think you're limited on the type of funding, right? Depending on what you pick as the infrastructure project.
Correct.
Correct. What you pick as your primary infrastructure, which is not associated with cost, the way we have it written right now. It's go into WorksWise, put in your numbers, whichever infrastructure has the biggest dollar value, that's your project type for OPWC. When you come into the DOPWIC program, you choose your primary infrastructure, and not all communities will choose the same. So they may say, we're doing this because of water, but at the end of the day, we're actually spending a little bit more on road. So for OPWC, the project type is road. For us, the primary infrastructure might be water. So when we're going through how to evaluate health and safety and infrastructure condition, we have been doing it just on what you picked for the DOPWIC program. And so,
I mean, that is, I guess, in selecting your primary type of project, you're saying that's the reason you're doing the project. So if the reason you're doing the project should, in theory, have the worst condition, I mean, that should be the driver, right? So that is what you should be evaluating for condition. That is the driver of the project, right? I don't know.
I think the
But-
thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I also think if two road projects are equally bad and one of them has a bad water line and the other one doesn't, I
Should
think-
get more points, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And it doesn't right now.
Well, you are
On
getting more
these.
points for coordinated infrastructure. That's where we put that category in years ago, to try to give them credit for doing more. Right, like, to give them more credit for that. I mean, I still think there's some discrepancies between the infrastructure condition, because a bridge can only get the highest points if literally it's closed. And when do we close bridges? Very rarely, right? So I still think there's equity issues across the types of projects and how they're scored, but that's a topic for another day.
If I could question, do you get extra points by coordinate? If there are
Yes.
3, you get 3 scores, if you will, versus 1
So-
extra bonus for coordinated?
No, you get points for
For
each thing.
each thing
so
you're fixing.
if you're doing a road with a bridge, with a water line, with a sanitary line, you add up, it gets to, I forget what the max is.
I think 5 is the
5
max.
maybe is the max, yeah.
So you do get extra points for fixing multiple things at the same time.
And then are they weighted somehow when you're looking at the whole
No.
project?
No, just sort of 1
No.
plus 1 plus.
So
It is
that-
lower than.
Yeah, so we don't make any decisions about that, the staff. It's if they say we're actually fixing this plus this plus this plus this, we just pick it and the spreadsheet comes up with the score for coordinated infrastructure. The question is, and I have the same thought process as Bonnie, is if you have 2 projects that are essentially equivalent, but one of them is really bad, both on water, has safety issues on water and, health and safety and infrastructure conditions on road, and the other one only has it on road, for health and safety purposes, they may get the exact same score.
But are we talking about infrastructure condition or health and safety?
Both.
Because perhaps I could argue that works for health and safety, but for infrastructure condition, I don't know. Do you get double? I mean, it's bad, right? So you're ranking in the bad category, so whether you were water bad or road bad, I don't know, you're
It'd be super
extra
bad.
bad.
Yeah, extra bad.
So I think we all, it seems like there's more work to be done, and maybe the staff can work on some recommendations, think through this a little bit more, but I think there's some value to reevaluating some of these scoring criterias and how you can combine some of those infrastructure conditions and health and safety scoring as well.
Yeah, my same point, see if there's any, if Nick thinks there's any good ones out there that we could maybe at least read.
Yeah,
Might
that's
be
a good
helpful.
idea. That's it.
Okay. Agenda item number 9, which is old and new business. Anything that anybody wants to bring up in regard to that? No? And do we have a date for the next meeting?
We do, thank you for filling out the doodle poll. Friday, May 15th, 9 a.m. to 10:30 worked for the most number of people.
Friday, May 15th.
Friday, May 15th, 9 a.m.
So
And I will have to confirm a room.
can you just double check? I have on my calendar, it's the Peace Officers Memorial, and I don't know if the city or we get wrapped up in when they have the parade that goes on. So I just want to be sure that that's not a conflict.
Okay. I'm just going by how people filled
I
out the doodle
know.
poll.
We should probably be there.
Stop. I just don't know, I mean, Bonnie might have, because she's the chair. I don't know if you do anything for that parade or anything. Or at HPG, that ends up at Huntington Park. Do you do anything? No. Okay. Just in case that came up on my calendar. Yeah. Okay.
May I make one more comment? The only other thing, I will check the roster, but most of you have terms that will be expiring in 2027. And so we have a lot of time, but I want to make sure that we reach out to your appointing authorities within the next 5 to 6 months to have them, because sometimes it takes several months for them to figure out who they're going to appoint and get back to us on that. So we'd like to have that all in place next fall. so that when people's terms expire a year from June, you will be renewed.
Okay.
Question to go back
That-
to push.
Yeah.
The alternates discussion. Can a person have two alternates? And would that kind of manage maybe someone needing to swap out an alternate for some reason?
The way the bylaws were written and as we just approved them is that we were going to stick with the one alternate, one person model. You know, that's a good question. Yeah. No, I think that's a good discussion on it. I mean, I do think that there could be a way to, again, if you're comfortable with it. I think Nicole raised a good point. If the alternates for the two people from a member category if everybody's from the same organization, it seems to me the flexibility of swapping people in and out would be fine because pretty much everyone's keeping up on it.
I wonder if it would still be in line with the bylaws that we approved if, say, when Cleveland submitted their list, they put Bonnie and then alternate either Keisha or Rick, and then Jamie alternate either Keisha or Rick. So you're really still only supplying two alternates, but you're leaving them that way. I don't know if that would be acceptable, because I could see that helping, and it's still only two alternates for the two positions, but yet it's not.
So the way I worded it, if you were to change it,
I didn't want to go backwards, sorry.
it could read, I know we were so close. It could read, the appointing authorities that appoint, I've got some red line in here. Appointing authorities that appoint committee members also may appoint, it currently says an alternate. It could read, may appoint one or more alternates for each or either committee members. Which means that the letter that comes from the mayor would say the following two alternates could be alternates for either of the above members. And then the thing on the alternates would read, an appointment of alternates by each respective appointing authority is optional. However, once the appointing authority has exercised their option to appoint an alternate, it may not be rescinded for the duration of the alternate's term. And it currently says of the member's term.
I mean, I don't think we have the problem that often, and not that we need to go backwards, but maybe in the future we think about. But if you put may, it doesn't mean the mayors have to do that. The mayors and managers could only state one for one.
They would have to
You know.
list the top two probably or something. We
Or you could keep it where you only have one for one. You don't
Right.
have to do what
Right.
we're saying. So, I don't know. Sorry, I was just trying to go help Keisha along a little bit.
Well, do we like that language? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we could amend our earlier vote if you like this language.
I don't have a vote.
You'd have to leave it in though for the mayor, I mean.
can't change ours.
Yeah.
Take under consideration.
Okay, so, I mean,
Yeah.
Go back.
okay. So you all can update the bylaws anytime you want. You just have to update them every 5 years. So I'll keep this language handy in case we want, and that would make, and I do have to send our bylaws downstate. I think this would be fine. We'll send it down the way we've amended it today. Should you want to change it at some point in time in the future, it'd be easy to let Abby, the new director, know we're just changing this one sentence.
Elaine, do we have a list of the terms, when people's terms end?
I do.
Okay,
I do. I'll get that out to everybody
That'd be
this
helpful,
week,
yeah.
so we know.
lost track.
Yeah.
All right, any other business? All right, with that, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
I will second. Okay, all right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? So adjourned.